Merhabalar, Teori Dergisi YouTube kanalına hoş geldiniz. Bugünkü konuğumuz çok kutuplu dünyanın oluşumu ve sonuçlarıyla alakalı çalışmalar yürüten araştırmacı gazeteci Sayın Kanthan olacak. Sayın konuğumuzla beraber renkli devrimleri 5 ana soruda inceleyeceğiz. Haydi başlayalım.
Basically, if you look at the US after World War II, they just wanted to do the colonialism, but in a more sophisticated way. So the organization to make sure that the countries around the world were always pro-US and kind of like a puppet was the CIA, you know. So traditionally for about 20, 30 years, the CIA would have several ways to do the carrots and sticks to make sure that all the leaders in the developing nations, they would always be pro-US, you know. So the carrots would be like, okay, so we'll be nice to you, and you can have a big bank account in Switzerland, whatever, right? And we will let your the children go to school in America. You can buy a home, and you can buy stocks in the American corporations, and so on. And if that person is not willing to go along with the bribe, and if the person, say, loves his country, and if the leader wants to do what's right for his nation, then the CIA would work on several ways to get rid of that person, you know? So, like, if they had the elections, like, say, like the Italian elections in the 1940s, the CIA would literally carry suitcases of the dollar bills, and they would go and bribe the opposition. They would give money to the media to publish fake news about the leader. And that's one way they would disrupt the election and rig the election. And the US has done that all over the world. They rig the elections everywhere, and they call it spreading freedom and democracy. So, well, if that doesn't work, then there are several ways, you know. So one way is to fund the opposition, to start protests, or if that doesn't work, they would do the assassination. You know, the CIA would simply send people to assassinate the leader. They might shoot the leader. The planes, you know, for example, in Latin America, in Panama and the Ecuador, when the leaders, they wanted to do what's right for their nation to help their people, the CIA simply blew up their planes. You know, they would plant bombs in the planes, and the planes would explode. With Fidel Castro, the U.S. Tried like 50 different ways to kill Castro, you know, and they would make cigars, fake cigars with bombs inside, and if you light it up, the cigar would explode. So many different ways. And then they were quite successful, you know, like in the African countries in Congo, the CIA murdered the leader, and they put the body of the leader into a barrel of sulfuric acid to dissolve the body. So they would do all these like really crazy things. And if you, you know, the first, the color revolution was actually like in Iran in 1953. because in 1951, the Iranian leader, Mossadegh, he went to the British and he said, hey, why are you keeping all the profits? Like 90% of the oil profits from Iran went to the British. So he said, that's not fair. Let's split it maybe 50-50. And then the British said, no, the oil belongs to the British and all the profits belong to the British. So Mossadegh, he simply nationalized the oil sector. He said all the oil industry in Iran, it belongs to the Iranian people. So then the British wanted to get rid of him, but he was very popular. And the British were very weak. So the MI6 was not able to get rid of him. So they called up the CIA. They said, hey, we are brothers, the MI6 and the CIA. Can you help us get rid of this guy? We want to keep all the oil. So the CIA said, well, we will help you, but you need to share the oil with the American corporations. So at that time, the British company was called British Petroleum, BP. Now it's called the BP. So the British will agree to share the oil with, the Exxon Mobil, Chevron, and all the Rockefeller companies. So then the CIA, the guy who was stationed in Tehran was the grandson of the former US president, Teddy Roosevelt. So Roosevelt was like an imperialist, he was the first president in the US to say, we need to be like the Europeans. We need to take over the world and not just be satisfied with the USA. So Teddy Roosevelt's grandson was in Tehran. So I believe on the 15th of August in 1953, this Roosevelt guy, he tried to stage a coup, but it failed. So then the CIA wrote him a memo. They sent him the cable saying, forget about it. We need to figure out some other way because we don't want the Iranians to find out that the CIA is trying to stage a coup in Iran. But he didn't listen. So 3 or 4 days later, he went with more suitcases of dollar bills. He gave it to all the army generals, the clergies. And then he hired a huge mob. When you have so many dollars, you can get thousands and thousands of people to work for you. So these mobs, they went and burst into the government buildings. And he had also bribed the police and the army. So they didn't stop the mob. So then Mossadegh was forced to resign, and he was sent to jail, and then he spent the rest of his life in his home. He was a prisoner, and then he died at home. So this was a very successful operation. This was the first color revolution. But the CIA went back to the assassinations and the invasions. That was a lot easier for them. And also there was more money involved, right? So if you have to wage a war, if you have to send the US military, then the US government is forced to spend billions of dollars. It's really very good business to do this. War is a great business for America. And so they went on doing that for about 30 years. And in the 1970s, the US politicians, they got very scared of the CIA because the CIA had become so powerful, and a lot of people, they believed that the CIA was behind the assassination of President JFK in 1963. And the CIA was doing all kinds of the mind control programs. They were flooding America with drugs, the LSD. So if you remember the 1960s movements, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the CIA played a major role in that. So the US politicians, they got very worried about the CIA. And the CIA also controlled all the major media, like the New York Times, the Time magazine, Newsweek, Life magazine, the Reader's Digest, all those that had very powerful influence over the Americans and the rest of the world were controlled by the CIA. And this was also revealed in 1975. So the US Senate, they had the committee hearings, and it was all revealed to the public. And also many CIA, the agents, they came forward and they gave the interviews to the public. They wrote books about the CIA operations. So then the CIA went back and they said, oh, we need to figure out a different way to stage the coups and all those things. So then the State Department, the US State Department, they started to work with the CIA to figure out what is the better way to do it. We still want to get rid of leaders who speak out against the US, but we want to do it in a very smart way, So we don't want the world to know what we are doing. So then the US Congress, they established this group in 1983. It was called the National Endowment of Democracy, NED, And as you can see, for example, if you take a look, so if you go to their website and if you see what are they funding, like in, say, with Turkey, they do it openly, okay? They will spend millions of dollars on the civil societies or the non-profits in Turkey, okay? But they will have very nice names, right? Like they will call it justice, women's rights, very, very nice names, LGBT, so they will find, but every country has a weak point, right? So there's no country that is perfect. So they will find the weak points in each country, and they will use that weak point to drive a wedge into the weak point, So if, say, in Turkey, the Kurdish are not so happy, right? Then the NED will say, we want to help the Kurdish people, right? And they will spend millions of dollars on funding the Kurds, maybe college education. And their primary focus is also, like always, the young people, the college students. Because the young people are very easy to brainwash, and they have more passion to fight, to protest, to fight the police, to fight the armies. So you need a lot of the energy, and the young people are the perfect target. So the US will fund so-called, the independent media. Okay, they love independent media. If you were like a true independent, then you will say some bad things about America and some good things about America. No, these independent media will only criticize the government that is not bowing to America, So they will always use words like dictator. That's like their favorite word. So whoever that does not bow to the American corporations, to the IMF, the World Bank, the G7. It's actually very sophisticated, and they will have like 100 different organizations. So you cannot very easily figure out all the connections, right? And some of these organizations are directly funded by the National Endowment of Democracy. But then the NED also has like several subgroups, like the NDI, National the Democratic Institute. So they will have 50 different organizations, So you have to spend like a few hours connecting the dots. They make it very difficult to find out. And then there are also private organizations. Okay, so like for example, George Soros is a billionaire, and he works very closely with the government, the U.S. government. Why does he do that? Because if the color revolution is successful, then the hedge fund will be able to buy all of the corporations for a very cheap price, right? Say, for example, if he succeeds in Turkey's the color revolution, then George Soros and all these, BlackRock and all these corporations will buy the shares of all the major Turkish corporations, right? So they will buy, shares in a Turkish bank, Turkish media, Turkish the military, manufacturing, and all those. But for the average Turkish person, they would not know because you would still have the same name, Like say, like there is, so let's say there is a Bank of Istanbul, right? So the Bank of Istanbul would still be called Bank of Istanbul, right? But then if you go into the detailed, the fine prints of the shareholders, suddenly, about 2 years after the color revolution, the number one shareholder of the Bank of Istanbul will be like somebody like BlackRock, right? So it's a very sophisticated way to take over the country. And then you will have a lot of other the private organizations that won't even share the information as to who they are funding. So, for example, in the country of Georgia, they wanted to pass a law saying the NGOs who get a lot of funding from the foreign countries must reveal to the public, like they should say in their website where they're getting the money from, right? And that sounds like a normal thing, right? For example, like in the US, if Turkey wants to fund like an NGO in the US, they will not allow that, okay? Like they will say, oh, that's the interference in America, and we're going to sanction Turkey for trying to interfere in the American democracy. The only one who doesn't have to register for FARA is the pro-Israel lobby. Okay, for some reason, they can spend like $500 million on buying all the American politicians. But the AIPAC, which is the American-Israeli blah, 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 they don't have to register as a foreign agent. And the last president who tried to force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent was President John F. Kennedy. And we know what happened to him. So, for example, in the country of Georgia, a few months ago, they tried to pass a law saying that all the NGOs must reveal where they're getting the funding from. And then all the NGOs, they started to protest, you know? So these people are, the young people are so stupid that they don't know that, their country is being taken over by the Americans and the Europeans. So, and then another way that George Soros, he does this a lot, is that if there is like an election, and if the pro-US candidate loses the election, then the NGOs will start a huge protest by saying that the election was rigged. And then the American media, the BBC, and all these, the media will spread fake news saying that the election was not fair. And then, you will see the American president, he will show up on TV or social media, and he will say, oh, this is not democracy. This is a bad election, and we are going to sanction the country, right? And every country is dependent on the US dollar to do the trade, right? So it's very hard for a country to face sanctions. Because if the US puts sanction on the country will not be able to buy oil, will not be able to trade, So, for example, you look at, say, North Korea, Cuba, Iran. So they all have been suffering a lot because of the US sanctions. So it's very powerful. And if they're not able to sanction the whole country, they will sanction the leaders, right? And a lot of these leaders, most of the leaders around the world, they will have some connections to the US, They'll have some money in the American banks. They will have family members. Their sons and daughters might be going to Harvard. They might be working for JP Morgan, where they don't have to do much work, but they will get maybe $1 million a year as a salary, So they have so many ways to capture the elite. So it's about carrots and sticks. So if you are nice, if you are nice and obedient, you will get the carrots. And if you start to disobey, if you start to do what's good for your people, what's good for your country, then you become an enemy. And so it's a very sophisticated operation, and they work for like many years, because it takes like many years to brainwash a generation. So they will, for example, they will get the professors from certain countries, and these professors will go to the US to do the PhD. They'll get a degree, and then they go back to their country, And then these professors will brainwash the kids, but they don't even know that they are, brainwashing, right? So they come to America, they study, oh, okay, so like this is how economics is supposed to work. Free market is good. We need free media, free, The word freedom is so seductive, right? So like you can go to whoever person in the world, whether it's like an African, whether it's like an Asian, Latin American, whoever. And if you say, do you want freedom? People will say, yes, yes, I want freedom, you know? So they use the freedom, the free market, the free media, and you should be able to fight your government. And but everybody in the world, for some reason, likes to fight the government, you know? But what these people do not realize is once you get the pro-US government, then there's no fighting, okay? And then there will not be any protest, right? So take, for example, Ukraine. So in 2014, they had the color revolution, fake color revolution. So they got rid of a democratically elected leader. And then the US, they funded the Nazis in Ukraine. So there are a lot of Nazis, so I don't know, like maybe 4 or 5 the percentage of the population are the Nazis. But if you look at the Kiev, so like you could have like say 10,000 fighters like the Nazis, and then you just like it happened like in Iran, first you buy the army, the police, the politicians, and the media. Okay, so that's the first step. You buy the elites, and then you pay the mob. And then you have this mob, and then the NGO students who can write a very good journalism, sensationalism. They learn how to do photography. The NGOs, they spend a lot of money on teaching the kids how to take photographs, how to spread sensational news on social media. And then you have the CIA, State Department. They will give those people the blue check marks, and they will do the amplification of the messaging, right? Say, for example, like I am pro, the government, right? And you are the anti-government. So we both go on social media, and I say the government is good, and you say the government is bad. Okay, so now what the US State Department, CIA, the Pentagon, they all work together, so it's called the blob. And these people, they work very closely with all the US social media, like Facebook, Twitter, the Instagram. And these spy agencies, they have their own people like working for Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and all those places. And so these are not even like a secret, So like if you go to LinkedIn and you look at the Google employees and you look at the past history, it'll be like, oh, I used to work in the State Department, and I used to be the analyst for the CIA, and I used to work for the FBI, but they don't even try to hide it anymore. They're just so open. So these people are able to amplify the right message, So like if you are the anti-government, then your message will get 500,000 views, 5 million views. And if I'm pro-government, then my message will get 5 views, right? So nobody will see it. And if I am, say, really popular, okay, then they will just ban me. It's so simple, right? So like you see in the pro-Palestine, and the pro-Gaza voices, like they're all totally crushed. So like if there is, so for example, in Facebook, there was this the Quds news network, whatever. So they had 2 million followers. And when the October 7th, the Hamas attack happened, Facebook simply canceled that group with 2 million views, right? So they crush one type of voices, and they're able to amplify the other type of voices. And for the most of the people around the world, they don't follow what is happening around the world, like they only care about what is happening in their country. So like if there is a color revolution in Turkey, and if you ask somebody in Brazil, like in India, in Japan, hey, so what happened in Turkey? They don't know, right? So like they will read what? The American media, like they will go to Google and search. They will go to Newsweek, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, blah, blah, blah. And it's all controlled by the Americans. So, and they will have a certain view, like they will say, oh, there was a bad dictator in Turkey, and the good people of Turkey rose up against the dictator because they wanted freedom and democracy, and the people won. So then, like, people all around the world are like, wow, wonderful, so beautiful, the people won. So, yeah, so like, this is how it works. They turn the people around their own the government, but it's a very small the percentage. So like they make like they turn 1% of the college students, but typically it's always the young people, like between the ages of say 16 to 24. It's like the perfect age for the color revolution, and then they're able to buy off the military, the police, the media, the college professors, and and if you look at their background, you'll always find that they speak English, that they studied in America, they studied in London, and you can see all the links. It's a tough question, but I would say that the Turkish people, they have to stay together, and like even if you have, say, multiple parties, one big party on the left, maybe one big party on the right, the parties need to learn how to share the power, right? So because if one party says, well, I'm going to have 95% of the power, and I'm not going to share the power with the other party, then the losing party will become very vulnerable to the American the bribing and the propaganda and the brainwashing. So the first step for all the developing nations is stick together. Okay, even if you fight with one another, that's like a family, so you are a family. So like, but you may have multiple, so you may have, say, the liberals versus the conservatives. But, but you have to realize you both are brothers and sisters. Because once you start to fight amongst each other, then one of them will become the victim of the American brainwashing and the color revolution. because it's just the human psychology, like in Bangladesh, one person, she was a very good person, I mean, in terms of what she wanted to do to the country, So she was very smart, and she worked with all the nations around the world. She worked with the US, she worked with Russia, she worked with China, she worked with India. And that's a smart way to do it, right? Like if you want to help your country, you should be friends with all the countries in the world, and then you're able to benefit. So she ruled for about 15 years, and the GDP of Bangladesh, it grew almost fivefold, from $100 billion to almost $500 billion. And that happened in like 15 years. It's like remarkable. So the economy was stable and prosperous, and she worked with all the countries, but she wasn't able to share her power with the opposition. So then the US went to the opposition. They took the opposition leader to London, and the US followed all the principles of the color revolution that we discussed, and they were able to overthrow the prime minister of Bangladesh. So my concern is that Turkey should not fall into that trap. For example, what's his name? Fethullah
Gulen terrorist organization, yes, FETÖ.
Yeah, right. And so he's based out of the US, right?
Yes.
Yeah, see? That's like a perfect guy that the US will use for the color revolution. And this guy, Gulen, will have many schools, nonprofits, colleges, small businesses, whatever, right? So he's going to have like a vast network. So that's a danger.
Yeah. So you say we are in danger in the near future?
Well, we are all in danger, well, my country, India, is also in danger because, unfortunately, the people of the world, they do not realize how it's, working. So, like, they become the pawns, but take, for example, Ukraine, right? So millions of Ukrainians are dying fighting Russia, but they don't know that they're just fighting Russia on behalf of America. Like brainwashed to hate Russia, they're the neighbor, while 40% of the Ukrainians are actually the ethnic Russians. And these people were like brothers for 600, 700 years. And now the US has able to split the country in half, to make one people fight the other, right? So look at what the US did in Syria, right? So they split Syria into Shiites, Sunnis, Kurds, right? So but this is the master, So if you look at the Middle East, why is the Middle East not so prosperous? Like the whole region should be so rich, right? Like you have so much oil, so much natural gas. So logically, Turkey and Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, like they all should be like Qatar and the UAE, right? Like with huge skyscrapers, with beautiful cities, and the Iraqis should be driving a BMW in Baghdad, and they should have like really smart the universities with scientists, and I mean, like, it should be very, very different. But why is it so wrecked? Why is there any poverty like in Iraq? Like, there should be no poverty in Iraq, right? And it's because of the divide and rule. I mean, it's sad that the people of the developing nations, the global South, they keep fighting amongst each other. One nation fights against the other, and they fall for all kinds of the tribal, the instincts, Sunni, Shiites, Arabs, non-Arabs, blah, blah, blah. And then they all fail in the end, and the people who are laughing are the bankers and the big corporations of the West. I mean, you look at, the Iraqi, the government, do you know what happens when they sell the oil? They have to sell the oil in the US dollar, and that dollar, it goes straight to the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. So then the New York Federal Reserve Bank, it gives the money to the Iraqi government, and they decide so how much the Iraqi government gets. Okay, so like say the Iraqi government, they sell $50 billion of, the oil. That $50 billion is kept by the Americans, and they give that the money to the Iraqi government as if they're doing charity work. Okay, like they will say, well, if you are very nice to America, I will give you $1 billion this month. And if you let Citibank operate in Baghdad, if you will agree for BlackRock to buy something, if you will agree to have a Starbucks and McDonald's and Coca-Cola, then we'll give you this. So like they would totally control the finance of the Iraqi people. And then, so it's sort of like works like a mafia system. And, and it's sad that the developing nations, they fall for these tricks.
Yeah.
Best is to be friends with all, so the world is going to be multipolar. The American empire is slowly falling, it's slowly crumbling. But we don't know when it's going to happen. It may happen in 10 years, 15 years, but there's no logical way that the American empire can last another century. And so you can see how much debt they have. It's already like $35 trillion of debt. And you can see the polarization. The American the society is really split, and it's falling apart. And they don't have much manufacturing anymore. So they are living a fake life, the Americans. But they're trying to bring down Russia. They're trying to bring down Iran. They're trying to bring down China. And I don't think they will succeed, well, if they succeed, then we will see the American century for another 100 years. And, then you'll have the LGBTQ all over with Turkey. And we will all be eating McDonald's and bad food. And we will all be fat. It'll be a very scary world if the empire wins. But I would say 99% chance it's not going to win, and the world is going to be multipolar. So for Turkey, the best thing is to be friends with all. Be friends with Russia. You get the natural gas and oil and whatnot. Russia has so much natural resources, and they're also very good in the defense. Why should Turkey buy fighter jets from the U.S.? Like the F-35 fighter jets have so many problems, and they cost so much money. And you can buy Russian jets for like 1/3 the price. And also the Russians are not going to put any like limitations, So like if you buy the missiles from the US, fighter jets from the US, you cannot operate it without the code from the US, So just like when I had to join the Zoom, I had to ask you for the passcode. So similarly, if you like say buy a fighter jet from the US and you want to go and attack somebody, some terrorist, you cannot do that because well, if you want to turn on the jet and if you want to take off, you need the passcode from the Americans. So they have a lot of restrictions, and they will spy on you. Once you let the military base into your country, they're going to spy on everyone all the time. So you lose a lot of sovereignty. So the best thing for Turkey is to be friends with everyone. Be friends with Syria, as I think that's important. Be friends with Iran. Be friends with the Sunnis, the Shiites, the Arabs, the non-Arabs, China, Russia. There's no reason, for all of us to hate one another, to fight one another. We have a long way to go, and there's so much more that we all can accomplish. So like there's no reason that something like 3 billion people in the world are still making less than $4 a day. There's no reason for so much poverty, struggle, and we could be so much better. So Turkey could be a developed nation, like you look at the history of Turkey, so it was the Ottoman Empire, right? The glorious days. So why should Turkey have foreign, the U.S., the military base in Turkey? Turkey should be a sovereign nation. So well, ideally they should be able to kick the U.S. military out and be friends with everyone and work together in a multipolar world. They want Turkey, right? So like they're not going to put Turkey in the bad guy category, right? Like they will bully you, they will threaten you, but they're always scared of Turkey fully joining the Russians and the Chinese, right? Because Turkey is a huge country, and the strategic importance of the location is really, really huge. So they will never fully they will never put you in the bad guys category. They will try to do a regime change. They will try to do the coup, but they will never turn Turkey into like an enemy. So that's the good news for Turkey, is that you will would never become the full enemy of the West because they need you. So that's the good part. But you can do a lot more, right? So it's called the strategic autonomy. And, for the same reason that Turkey is able to bridge the gap between Asia and Europe. So that the geographic location can also be translated into a geopolitical philosophy for Turkey, and you can say, hey, we are destined to be the bridge between the East and the West. And that's really a powerful geopolitical philosophy. It's the economic philosophy, and you can look at it from a spiritual point of view as well. So it's a tough balance in the sense that the U.S. is like a very jealous girlfriend. She's not going to share, but you have to bridge that the gap, and because the U.S. really does not want anybody to succeed, right? That's the fundamental. So like if you are one Turkish person, they will let you succeed in the U.S. But you can go to Harvard, you can do like an MBA, and you can become the CEO of some big company in America. Okay, like they will let you do that. But if you want to stay in Turkey, and if you want to start your own company to compete with that same the American company, they will not like that, right? So that's the catch that because in my country, so I mean, the Indians they have gone to the U.S. They have become the CEOs of Microsoft. They have become the CEOs of Google and Federal Express, blah blah. So a lot of Indians, they love America. They go, wow, see, where else can like an Indian go and become the CEO of a huge multinational company that's worth trillions of dollars? What they don't realize, if that is, the same smart Indian guy, he comes to India and he wants to start a company like Microsoft, like Google, then that will not happen. Okay, then the US will find several ways to stop. Like, look what happened to the CEO of Telegram, right? So he just got arrested in France, right? And that's by the US, right? Because Telegram is a competition to Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, X, and the American State Department and the CIA, they're not able to censor the contents. Like we talked about, how the U.S. State Department can magnify some messages and to bring down some messages, to ban people, to ban topics. They cannot do that with Telegram. That's why he got arrested, right? So the same thing will happen to a Turkish person or like an Indian person. If they want to be successful on their own, then they're going to be shot down by the Americans. Absolutely. So you just have to watch these people, where they go, where they give speeches. And so you can, like if you read the US media, like if you follow the social media account of the NED, they make it very clear who they support, and what they complain about. So they don't even try to hide it, you know. They will try to hide the intention with words, you know, like they will say, oh, this party is so pro-democracy, blah, blah, blah. But those are all just, you know, words, you know. So all you have to know is, okay, who does the CIA support? Who does the State Department support? That's all you have to look at, you know. So don't get carried away by, the excuses, right? So the geopolitics is it's like a jungle, you know. So for example, like if you look at Russia, it is the largest nation in the world, you know, like in terms of the area, and the British Empire, the French Empire, the Western Empire, they have been trying to conquer Russia since the Napoleon days, for over 200 years. So the excuses will be different. Oh, we are trying to spread democracy. Putin is bad, blah, blah, blah. But those are all just the excuses for the masses. But the main part is they want to conquer Russia. You know, so similarly in Turkey, the US wants to put somebody who is going to be 100% pro-America, 100% pro-NATO, and then that party, that person will become the enemy of Russia. They will stop the oil gas lines from Russia. They will stop the infrastructure projects with China, you know, because if you look at the Belt and Road Initiative, you know, all those, the highways, the railways, they come all the way from China, and they would love to have all those railways, highways go through Turkey, right? So Turkey is like a very, very strategic hub. So what the US wants is to have a very, very, wants to have like a puppet country. You know? So they want to have their pro-America, pro-US, pro-Western nations, and they will turn Turkey into the enemy of Russia, the enemy of China, the enemy of Iran, right? So there's nothing that is going to benefit Turkey, you know? So like, but you will just will end up having a lot of the enemies. So that's what is going to happen if the pro-American, the establishment takes over Turkey.
For this enlightening answer. Do you have anything to add?
You know, I have been to Turkey once. It was like maybe about 12, 13 years ago. I loved it, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, we have very similar the culture, family values, the education, the work, and even like the way the people talk, you know, it's like very similar. So I had a lot of really very good experience. So, you know, I wish Turkey all the best. Absolutely. All right. Güle güle.